Okay, so we spent a little bit of time talking about core values and how we use those as a decision-making process here at our business. And I wanted to spend a little bit of time on another concept that ties into that. A concept that is a part of that EOS process called GWC, which stands for gets it, wants it, and has the capacity to do it. A lot of you would have probably read the book Good to Great, where Jim Collins is talking about having the right person in the right seat on your bus. And the idea of gets it, wants it capacity really ties into that as well. So as we're talking to people about potentially moving into new positions here at our business, or when we're making hiring decisions, or even unfortunately sometimes decisions to move on from somebody who's working with us, gets it, wants it capacity to do it is really the fundamental part, along with our core values, of that conversation. So when we're talking about gets it, wants it, and has the capacity, we are talking about people, and we're talking about people with respect to the role that we're hoping that they play and the outcomes that they can achieve in that role. The questions that you ask about people are, do they get the job that we're asking them to do? Do they understand what it is that we're hoping to have them accomplish in their role? And that's what the gets it part is. Do they want that role? And this is really a tricky thing to measure. Usually you can very quickly ascertain whether or not someone understands the role that you're asking them to play, but they can be very guarded at times about whether they want the role, and that can really affect whether or not they're happy as a person working on your team, or whether or not they're really as effective as they could be. And then the last piece, which is probably the most difficult for you as an owner or a broker in a business, is to make sure that you're putting people in place who have the capacity to do the job. And capacity can mean a bunch of different things. It could mean, do they have the skills? Have you provided them the training? Have you given them enough time and enough resource where they can actually do the things that you've set out for them to do and try and accomplish? So when we're measuring whether or not we're performing well, or the team members that we have in our staff are performing well, gets it, wants it, and has the capacity to do it, tie right into the core values, which we're expecting of them as well, to make sure that they're in the right spot. How do you get to the point where you can effectively measure this? The first thing you have to do is you have to look at each job in your business and ask, what are those outcomes that you're looking for from that particular role? So I'll take an example in a very common sort of brokerage role that you would see is a deal closing clerk. So really the job involves receiving and processing paperwork, reviewing transactions to make sure that they're complete, closing the transaction and making sure that everyone gets paid. So when you're looking at the people who go into that role for you, do they understand the role? Do they want that role? And then do they have the capacity, the resource, the time to do that role? So before you can answer the questions about the person, you have to know what the outcomes are. And then we've taken a lot of time here at our business to sit down and try and come up with 4 or 5 little bullet point outcomes for each role within the brokerage that we're measuring all the time. So on top of core values, when you're making personnel decisions, this gets it, wants it, and has the capacity concept is such an important part of getting the right people in the right seat on your bus as you travel down towards a successful business. So hopefully that's helpful, and we'll talk again soon.